a younger coaching staff that Shawnee Mission East has, but it has its assets and balances out on both ends.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Shawnee Mission West is getting better with many of their coaches, in addition to Lawrence, because a lot of Coach Wedd's former assistants and teachers, they might take another path or have chosen to retire, but some are staying because they want to see what will happen to the future of the Chesty Lions.
Yeah. So, yeah, those are, a couple interesting games. I mean, obviously then you move into tomorrow night's games. Shawnee Mission East, we are playing Gardner Edgerton in their first game joining the league. We have battled with them the last couple years in the playoffs, and actually 2 years ago we went for two toward the end of the game to win it. We were kind of trailing the whole game, and they jumped out on us early, and we fought our way back in it and ended up winning by one
that was a
on
very
a 2-point
exciting
conversion.
I was at that game in the press box with the Harbinger, and I'd never seen more nervous students trying to get through a game and trying to keep them calm on the telecast, but it was exciting to say none the least.
Yeah.
And those 4 times that the Lancers have played Gardner Edgerton were all non-conference games at the time.
Yeah.
And either in or out of the playoffs. That's not the point anymore, but now it's a league battle, so we'll see what Ryan Cornelson will also bring with his coaching staff too, because they have nothing but strength coming their way. They have Greg Webb, formerly of Eudora, and Claflin, who's won multiple state titles. And a couple years ago, he spent 3 years with the Truman Patriots over in the Suburban League, and he's a genius when it comes to coaching. And yeah, he's been at the 4A levels and below. He's essentially like the Gene Weir and possibly the Marvin Deaners of the lower class schools. And I'm not talking classes and demographic, but enrollment classes just based on
enrollment,
where you're located, west or south of Topeka, or even south of the Kansas City Metro. They're going to be good, and Gardner Edgerton's going to put up a great fight on Friday night. Just don't underestimate what's on the other side of the sideline, because it can come back and bite.
Yep, and we have definitely had a good, week of prep. We, do have some, some older films, from when Cornelison was at Hutch, to have an idea of what they're going to do. We traded a scrimmage film with them, our kind of blue-black scrimmage for their inter-squad scrimmage. So we had an opportunity I had an opportunity to watch that and kind of get an idea of their personnel. Offensive line-wise, they're young. They only have one senior that's going to start on that offensive line. But the thing that I saw was, just because those guys were young, they still were firing out. They were very physical. And, in a kind of run-heavy team, run-heavy scheme that he runs, you want your O-line to be physical. And that's kind of the thing that we had, at Shawnee Mission East, running the flex bone previous years, was our O-line was always tough and very physical.
So your O-line this year is pretty tough, right?
Yeah, it's our O-line is going to be very tough. They've been really improving over the last few weeks. Coach Buttermore has done a good job with those guys. And Andy Walter, I'm not saying he didn't do a great job with those guys, because he did. Andy Walter was fantastic in his time at Shawnee Mission East coaching that group. And, it's just now we're asking those O-linemen to do different things.
Right.
So it's a different skill set that Coach Buttermore had to teach them, because we're asking guys to pull more. We're asking guys to actually take pass sets, for protection-wise. And before, it just wasn't in our scheme. So, not that it was ignored. It just, it wasn't what we did. So you practice what you do. And, so.
Even if it's a minute movement left or right, it can either cost you a penalty, or you're just going to keep moving down the field just based on how well the offense is doing.
Yeah, so, I'm expecting this to be a tough game. And like I said earlier, everybody wants to get to 1-0. Obviously, 2 new coaches. Corneliuson, he's been a head coach, but Hoover, wanting to get his first win as a head coach and kind of we feel like as a staff, once we can get this first win, everything's behind us. All the drama and everything that happened. It's since we've hit the field, it's really kind of been almost a distant memory. And, so once we can get to 1-0, obviously it puts it further behind us, and we just continue moving down the road.
Absolutely. And that goes for every team in the league. I mean, pretty much across the city. Yeah. I mean, everybody's getting, like the Missouri schools are already a week ahead of us in games, but that just makes it more competitive.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the Missouri schools, congratulations to Coach Harris, William Harris at Van Horn. It was on the show a few weeks ago. Yeah, they started out 1-0. They won last week against East. So, and then they got a big game this week against Butler. So Butler was 0-1. So he's got a chance to get to 0-2. I mean 2-0. Make Butler 0-2.
He's going to get it.
So, hey, congratulations, Coach, on the win last week. My buddy DJ Patel, it's the offensive coordinator at William Crispin. They had a real tough one against Blue Springs.
Oh, yeah, that was not an easy game for a very talented William Crispin Bears. I mean, they have had a lot of success over the last 2 years, and they'll probably still be good. But when you have to face Kelly Donahoe and all of his student athletes, you're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough game. He compared it, to some of your small college schools, and you got to go play on the road at Alabama week 1.
Yeah, that would be essentially what the Blue Springs Wildcats are. If you're not prepared, or if you're a school on the St. Louis side, we're ready to face them in the 5 or 6 class Missouri State Finals. I would personally myself be cheering for the Blue Springs Wildcats. Yeah. Just living on the western side of Columbia, it's going to be in my nature to want that suburban league team to win.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Even if we're here talking about Sunflower League schools, I would love for those suburban league schools, St. Pius X, all those local Kansas City areas programs to do well when they meet in week 14 at the state final.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely cheer for several schools, on the Missouri side where I got, connections to, whether it's somebody I've coached with in the past or just somebody I know or have met through coaching and clinics and different things. But yeah, those are a couple schools I definitely watch. William Crispin and Van Horn definitely have personal connections there with 2 guys I've known for quite a while, and root for them. So, what any other big Sunflower League games to look forward to on Friday night?
Well, right now, the other big one, my favorite of the Friday night games, in addition to the just the ones that we've already mentioned, will probably be with Lawrence Free State taking on Olathe West. And we brought it up a couple weeks ago with those schools, with an experienced Coach Bob Lisher over at Free State, who opened it up my sophomore year at Shawnee Mission East in 97-98 to a young school that's only in its second year but first varsity season with TJ O'Neill. And my advice to Coach O'Neill would be to listen to what Bob Lisher has to say and how to run and operate a program from day one, because there hasn't been another coach at Free State. He's seen it since the day the school opened, and TJ Lisher can follow in those same footsteps and do great things for Olathe West. And yeah, Olathe West is going to be outmatched from kickoff. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to compete, because all of those kids on that Owls football program have played at all 4 Olathe schools. Now it's just coming together after being in the classroom for over a year now together. And in their second year, their first year as varsity, finding their identity. And like their athletic director had told me, Pat Butler, last spring, he said it's going to take Olathe West about 2 or 3 school years, possibly 4, to find it, because it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in week 6. It's not going to happen in week 9. It's going to take 20, 30 games for Olathe West to be able to gain that respect in the league from the other 12 schools.
And for the kids to develop chemistry together.
Yeah.
That way, because they go to school all 4 years, and chemistry is a big thing. And when you put a bunch of kids together that hadn't played before, and all of a sudden, I don't know. I agree with you. They're way outmatched by Free State. So.
Yeah, and Free State I know has a
monster,
pretty talented senior class.
Jack Steneen.
Yeah, my first year at Shawnee Mission East 4 years ago, our senior group was freshmen, and they went undefeated as freshmen, and they had a great game with Lawrence Free State as freshmen. That was a very close game, back and forth, kind of a shootout, up and down game, and we drove down and won it, kind of at the end of the game. But our kids, that are seniors, they still talk about that game all the time. I mean, it's a great memory for them to win that battle, and so I've heard a lot about that game.
Oh yeah, I mean Lawrence Free State has definitely put a wrench in a lot of plans for Shawnee Mission East over the last handful of years. However, these last 2 school years, they have not met just due to scheduling reasons.
Right.
Has nothing to do with distance or anything like that. I mean, they've played 14 times in their history, and in their series, and Free State leads the series 8-6, which is fine. But that's what a good football rivalry is for, even if it's Johnson County versus Douglas County. It really just comes down to what's going to happen on the field that night.
Yep. And, my first year at East, when we played them varsity, they beat us. That was one of our I believe it was our only regular season loss that year. And then we lost to Olathe North in the playoffs. Isaiah Simmons was the senior that year at Olathe North, and, lost a tough game there. But yeah, so, I'm looking forward to see, kind of how Free State will progress this year, and then obviously we see them a little later on down the line.
Yeah, that'll be Shawnee Mission East will face them later in the season, but it should still be a great matchup.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of those matchups as they get closer. Some big matchups that we see coming. But anything else from week 1 for the Sunflower League kickoff?
Some other highlights will probably be Olathe Northwest and Manhattan facing off for the very first time against each other in a non-conference game. Manhattan was 8-2 last year, so they're going to come out strong. And with Olathe Northwest, obviously getting a new coach and Aaron Hafner, it's going to be a struggle. But I mean, word around town and from the people I've spoken with and my sources in Olathe are saying that they're going to try running the flex bone, and it's as easy as it looks from the stands. Learning it is a whole nother goal to be doing, and it's knowing where everybody is on the field, whether you're in a spreading and passing offense or running it. Just it's not going to be easy the first 2 or 3 times, but whatever they do end up running, it'll work out in the long run. But we're not here to judge 2-3 days and then a couple days before kickoff when a school doesn't have a game under their belt, because it's not fair to the students or the coaches that are putting in a lot of work this week. Getting ready for game 1 in Kansas.
Yep, and I mean I know, the hours are long sometimes, but ultimately anybody who's a good coach wants to make sure that your kids are in the best position to win. I mean, and that's one thing I'm always kind of hesitant, especially at the high school level, to judge other programs, because I know guys are working hard, and ultimately it's about the kids, and let's put our kids in the best position that we can to win.
Absolutely.
And those are some things. So, Austin, I know you looked up kind of some teams in the Sunflower League, and do you want to try to pick a winner?
Well, I'll pick a winner. As much as I want to pick Blue Valley North because of the quarterback.
Well, they're Blue Valley North's in the EKL.
Okay, so Sunflower would be. I got to go Free State. That's it.
Interesting. I mean, they very well could.
I just kind of read up on everybody. And it looks
Yeah.
like it looked like they're ranked 2, right? What Prep says them at 2.
Something like that. Yeah.
Derby's 1 in not Sunflower, but Derby's 1.
Yeah, that's
and I
in
don't
the
see, and I
state
can't
rankings.
even
Yeah, in the
see.
state
I can't even
rankings,
see
yeah.
picking against Derby not to win state.
I know. I mean,